Welcome to the Rural Way Podcast, practical business and leadership conversations for small town living. I'm your host, Tracy Schira-Parker, and this is where we get to dig into working hard, showing up, and chasing big dreams from farmyards and small towns. So if you're building a business and a life where the pace is slower, you already know things are different. We don't have the same resources, margins, or risks, and this podcast is where we close that gap. We talk strategy that works, living a lifestyle we love, and staying true to our roots. So if you're ready, let's get at it. Welcome back to the Rural Way. I'm your host, Tracy Schira-Parker, and this is the podcast where we talk all things rural living, small towns, farming, ranching, and everything in between. Today is the third episode, and we're going to talk about why did I pick this niche? Because I had a lot of people asking, like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to focus just on rural? Because that might not be a big enough niche for you. And so I sat back and I was like, well, where do I feel most comfortable? I feel most comfortable in rooms that have some kind of rural footing and the blue collar people. And so I started to look at some of the businesses and aspects of, would that be enough? And if you listen to the first episode, I talked about when everybody kept saying to me that being a consultant in small town was never going to work, that quitting my bank job and starting consulting at the age of 30 was not a good idea. I didn't know what I didn't know, thank goodness, because I have not met another small town consultant that has been in business as long as I have doing what I do, ever, not once. And so I didn't know that it wasn't done. So I just did it because I didn't know any better. And I guess here too, I believe in my heart that this is a conversation that so many people across different communities are craving. And so I want to open that up. I want to bring on guests to talk specifically to rural people. And I guess when it comes right down to it, I think that there's some unique things. So I'm in a mastermind. I'm in a high-end mastermind, and there's women from around the world. There's two from Canada, only one from the prairies, and I think the other one's from Toronto. Nobody there has even a sense of what it's like to live in a community of 1,000 people. And so they were talking about the different resources and the different strategies for growing your business and how to get extra help. And they were talking about, people to come in and clean your house, or people to come in and do suppers. They call them dinners. We call them suppers. And I was just like, that is so not relatable. I don't have access to that. And if I did, I'd have to create it for myself. It's not just a service that's down the street that I can say, hey, I really need my house cleaned, and, can you drive 30 kilometers to come and clean it? I used to have a housekeeper, but it was very challenging to find somebody and that would actually do that. It was, it's not in our backyard. So we talk a different language. We have different access to things. We also have different expectations. I remember when 2020 hit and everybody was talking about having to eat at home. I'm like, where did you eat otherwise? I didn't realize how many people rarely cooked or ate in their home. We don't have DoorDash. We don't have Uber. Like, those things just aren't available to us. So our conversations are different. So I pulled some numbers. Just to see, like, okay, well, if I am going to just talk to rural people, and if I'm going to really specifically narrow down my message, my services, my promotion to people that live in rural landscapes, how many people am I talking about here? So I found that there's 5.957 million people that live outside of urban locations. So they called it RST, rural and small town, in Canada. So, which represents 15.2% of the whole population. So we're not all the population, but I feel like 5.9 is a decent amount. And even so, there's 4,154 communities that qualify, I guess, for small and rural town. 4,154 communities. I feel like that's a really stable part, that if I can get 5 people from each of those communities, I'm good. So then I looked at the U.S. population, and I looked at, they had a couple of numbers there. They track population a little bit differently than Canada, but 66.3 million are outside of an urban area, and they have 19,484. So if you think about 66.3 and just under 6 million in Canada, that's a lot of people who nobody's talking to. There's no podcasts that are specifically, I was looking for rural based. I wanted to see who's my competition. What are they talking about? What are the conversations? There's really nothing out there that is for the small town entrepreneur. There's agriculture podcasts. There are some ranching podcasts. So they're very specific to that, to the ranching and agriculture. But there's nobody that's condensing all of that and into a rural business lens, because I wanted to talk about all of it. I deal with farmers most of the time, and I have for the last 20, I guess it's been 30 years since I started working with, because most of my portfolio was in agriculture with the banking system. I know agriculture. We can talk agriculture. But what about the woman who is living on the farm, who came there educated? There's a lot of you that have a master's and you're sitting on the farm and you have this dream and you want the lifestyle, but you also have this nagging at this great big dream. That's what this is about. So why rural? I guess it's because that's what I know. I know what it's like to break free from the expectations and norms. And I know how hard it is to find childcare. That's a whole different beast. I know what it's like to have to drive extra to catch a flight to do a business trip when somebody else just, goes 5 blocks. So we deal with things differently, but we also have some benefits. We can go, and when we talk about a healing and wellness and a mental health perspective, we get to go stand in the bush and have the healing aspects of the trees all around us. We also have harvest. People that don't live on a farm don't understand the nuances of harvest. So during harvest, you don't plan things. You don't plan business trips. I did. I had to go away for a week this year for business, and it was frowned upon heavily. And I was like, I need to do it. It was a big project. But people that don't farm or that don't come from a farming community, like a September wedding is like, who does a September wedding when you come from a rural community? So it's little things like that is just part of our culture. And I think that for me, that's why I wanted to do a rural based one. When people were like raising an eyebrow saying, why rural? Like, why would you limit yourself that way? Why wouldn't you just say all small town or all small entrepreneurs or solopreneurs? And I was like, well, there's lots of people that do podcasts and provide content to solopreneurs. Lots. But nobody talks specifically to that solopreneur that lives on the farm or that lives in small town that just doesn't have the access to different things and that feels very, very alone. Being an entrepreneur is basically a very lonely thing to start with, and doing it in small town can be extremely isolating. So, yeah, let's just all get together and have those conversations. And I guess the other part is raising kids, raising athletes. That too is different from small town. I mean, if you live in the city, they complain. They complain about driving across the city for practice. And I always would say, like, seriously, I just drove an hour and 45 minutes one way for an hour and a half practice, and I have to drive an hour and 45 minutes back. We did that for years and years. We are on our last kid playing hockey. Practices are an hour and 20 minutes away or an hour and a half away. That's a home game. And then it's, this weekend we have a road trip down to the southern part of the province, which will be, I don't know how long it's going to be. Long. But people that live in the city that do sports and complain about driving across the city, it's a different conversation. And I'm not criticizing you. It's not judgment. It's just we have a very different lens about what it means to travel. So I think I wanted to talk just real quickly and address some of the differences in community core pieces. So, when it comes to the pillars of a community and how that impacts the way you live at a rural level, I worked on a healthcare initiative a number of years back, and it was fascinating to me how the conversation was constantly pitting us in a rural community that was considered, fairly at a remote level from a healthcare services lens, and how we were constantly being pitted against the urban counterpart in that same district. And I just said, if you keep making us compare and compete for resources and for funding, we're going to lose every time. We're smaller, we have a smaller population, but our needs are different. So why are we comparing and competing an urban to a rural? How do we make the best out of each so that they're complementing each other, not competing? And that changed the conversation a little bit. And so the other part is that a lot of times these government organizations come into a rural community and just, give you their decision that greatly impacts your whole community. It's important for us to get together and have those conversations and share resources, because I fought like hell and we ended up retaining the services, but it wasn't without a lot of battling it out and really advocating and getting the proper numbers, because they didn't have a vested interest in supporting the rural community and having the proper numbers. And so when I got in there, I just was like, this is the data, these are the numbers, and um, we need support, and this is how we're going to get it. And I didn't take no for an answer. So when it comes to you in the small town you live in, and how do you keep it going? Uh, One thing that people in small town forget, or I shouldn't say forget, but it's often on the peripheral, is the economic impact of losing those core services that are often government based, whether it's a school, a hospital, a healthcare facility, an RCMP office, or anything like that. When you lose those services from your community, a lot of people are coming to your community for those services, and they pick up some groceries and grab some fuel and do some other shopping. When you lose that, they're going and taking their money elsewhere. So I got heavily criticized because I kept bringing up the economic impact of losing certain healthcare services. And I said, because this is an economic impact. If you lose healthcare services, often the prices of your homes all drop, the revenue coming into all your small businesses drop. There is a huge trickle effect. So I want us to talk about that, so that you in the community that you live in, as a leader, whether you're in a leadership position or thinking of a leadership position, that your governance, your strategy, and the way you navigate that in a rural setting is in a very empowered way, where you know where to get the information, you know how to ask better questions, and you get to sustain and even grow and thrive in your community because of it. So it's, yeah, as you can tell, I'm passionate about that. So I came back to rural living, kicking and screaming. I grew up on a farm. I left to go to university, and I was never coming back ever in a million years. And I also wasn't having children, and I certainly wasn't marrying a farmer. You can see how that turned out. And I left, and I was just like, eh, I hate small town. I'm never coming back, all the things. And so then when I went to university, I wasn't crazy over the city. I knew that was where I was going to be. But I kept saying to myself, I just want an acreage by a small city. Anyway, long story short, I end up back in small town, and I have a real, again, this whole love-hate relationship with living in a small town. So I have this real, like, I'm not going to be Pollyanna about what it's like to live in a small town, but I'm also not going to, crap on it either, because I think that it's kind of like the sibling thing. Your siblings can pound the piss out of each other. Your kids can pound the piss out of each other. But if somebody else comes in to try to do that, they will defend them, and they will have their back all day long. So that's kind of how I am. There's certain aspects about rural living that has been extremely challenging, from as an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and a mother of four that did sports and just the travel. But I also won't allow somebody to come in and treat anybody here differently and like less than, because we come from rural. There is you see it in people. You see it when people come. I mean, in the area I come from, we have a lot of lakes and recreation. And so when people come out here to their cabins, there is this sense sometimes, not always, but there's this sense sometimes when they come to access services that they are doing us such a favor and that they treat some of the service people here not very well because, oh, they're from the city and these are just some small town hicks. And again, I'm saying that I've seen it happen. I'm not saying that for everybody. So, but it happens. And you feel some of that urban rural divide growing politically, economically. There's just some divide stuff going on. So, I don't want rural people to feel like they have to play small because they feel nobody has their back or understands where they're coming from. So that's not what we're going to do here. We're going to live full out and we're going to go and do business from this unapologetic perspective and make money as well from an unapologetic perspective. So I think that's just about it for this episode. I wanted to just kind of highlight why I picked rural. Because there might be some people that say, well, I don't know why Tracy's picking rural. She's always bitches about it. And that's why. I do believe strongly that we don't have to play small just because we come from rural. And we don't have to do business from a less than perspective or, oh, this is good enough just because. And we can do it differently. We can do it with a lot of innovation. I mean, I know that there's a ton of educated, qualified, experienced people that are going to be checking in here. And it's just a matter of changing what we expect and not making people comfortable all the time. Because the more money you make and the more successful you are and the more confidence you walk around with, it might make people be like, what is she up to? So that's it for today's episode. It is the third episode, and it's this whole video thing is getting easier. I'm still having trouble looking up at my webcam instead of straight ahead at, there's a lot to doing a video that feels really uncomfortable, but it'll get better and I'll get better at it. So if you stick around, these will get better. I will be doing episodes. I'll be doing solo episodes. These first few were just kind of some foundational pieces to let you get to know me, uh, let you decide whether I'm for you or not. And then we're going to start digging into some specific topics. But I kind of wanted to lay the groundwork first and have some episodes that just felt like, okay, we know who she is. We know why she picked rural. We know what the ground rules are. We know how we roll here. And then we can get going and get some momentum building for this podcast. So that's it for today. So again, please subscribe. Please share this with at least one person that you think would enjoy it, a business owner, or somebody that you feel has some dreams ruminating that you feel like it's time for them to take flight. And subscribe where you listen to this on your regular podcast. If this is an audio and you're listening to on your podcast platform, please follow that. And lastly, join the school community, SKOOL. It is the school community, and it's the product that Alex Hormozy has created. It's a great little platform. I'm still getting used to it as to what it is. I'm new on there. I wanted to have another community outside of Facebook, so that's what I've created. Please go join me there and join the community, and we will have more in-depth conversations, and it'll be more of a two-way street instead of me just speaking with you. You can ask some questions and have some dialogue that way as well. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me in the Rural Way, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.